Well, it's a frigid Friday evening in Flint, and the dust is settled after the trade deadline. The Firebirds are now back to action. It's the Guelph Storm in town, and the Birds have the debut of their newest member, Toronto Maple Leafs prospect Sam McHugh. Plenty of storylines as always, so here we go for the Firebirds and the Storm. Flint Firebirds hockey is on the air, and it starts right now. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside our broadcast booth for tonight's pregame show, driven by Shea Automotive. Here to tell you the story, I'm Brian Gardner. We got the Firebirds with the Guelph Storm here today, as the Birds are back home, having dropped their last three on the road, but in a place that's been very good to them as of late. The Firebirds have won 5 of their last 6 games in this building. Dort Financial Center home ice has turned into a pretty nice home ice advantage. And today they welcome the Guelph Storm, a team that sits at the bottom of the OHL's Western Conference, a team the Birds have seen once this season and dropped by a final score of 7-2 back in October in Guelph. So the Firebirds today, they turn their attention to the Guelph Storm and try and get back in the win column as the trade deadline has come and gone. Just a slight tweak to the roster for the Firebirds, who now have their group for the rest of the season. Let's get a look at that trade, as the Birds made a little bit of news on Wednesday as they sent Cole Zarowski and a 15th round draft pick to Owen Sound in exchange for the aforementioned Sam McHugh, a second rounder, 2 third rounders, and a conditional 15th rounder. So the Firebirds now will take the ice with Sam McHugh, who is set to make his Firebirds debut here this evening. Sitting on the second line, the Toronto Maple Leafs prospect, who is the 7th round pick of Toronto in the 2024 NHL draft. So now the word from the decision makers on the hockey operations staff is that they're really happy with their team. They went into the trade deadline thinking they weren't going to do a ton, but there was an opportunity that arose to add a player they consider to be a star in the league, one who fits the mold and the identity this team holds: gritty, hard-nosed, hard-working, but McHugh also brings plenty of skill. Birds like their team. They feel they're deep and they're talented, so there wasn't the need to do a ton. And all they really need to do is get themselves rolling. So here we go with the one addition of Sam McHugh, who again debuts tonight. This is the Firebirds group. Let's watch them try and get rolling. Before we do that, though, back to the highlights from the last time these teams were on the ice. We begin with the Firebirds in Brantford on the road on Wednesday. First period, first goal is a terrible bounce for the Firebirds. Merrick Van Acker fed Joshua Avery. It goes wide, hit off the outside of the post, off the end boards behind, bounces over Day's net and knocked in, as that makes it 1-0 for Brantford. Later, now 2-0. Noah Roberts this time. Dylan Tischerna fed him as he takes it from below the goal line, stuffed through the crease, right out in front, put home, and it's 2-0. Now the Bulldogs later, they're going to get one more, and this time through the crease it goes. Patrick Thomas feeding Cole Brown on the back door, and it's 3-0. Firebirds will answer. Hayden Reed to create for himself, pokes the puck free, runs it down for a breakaway, snaps and scores. Reed's fourth. Firebirds again on the board. It's 3-1. Second period. How about getting a little closer? Watch Tris Thibodeau drive the lane off for Nathan Aspinall. His shot turned aside. Johnny on the spot is Alex Kostov. Kostov bangs home the rebound. His third goal against the Brantford Bulldogs in only 2 games in that building in his career. And that made it 3-2. Later, though, it's the Bulldogs able to get another one on another terrible bounce for the Firebirds. Aiden O'Donnell from below the goal line snuck it through, somehow got through Day and the post to make it 4-2. Now in the third, back and forth they go. Nick Lardis from Cole Brown bangs it home. 5-2 the score, 5-2 the final. Brantford beats Flint by 3. Off we go to Erie and the Guelph Storm in Guelph. Storm early, fall behind. Dylan Edwards from Gabe Frasca. The Otters take the lead just under 2 minutes into the first period. Guelph's going to answer. Jet Luchenko taking flight. Luchenko fires one home from the left circle from Charlie Paquette and Daniel Skvortsov. It's 1-1. Second period, Guelph got another one. Skvortsov did score, but we're on to the fourth goal of the game, and it's Guelph to take a 2-goal lead. Luchenko's second from Ryland Singh and Lev Katzin, and it's a comfortable 2-goal advantage for the Storm. Not for long, though. Second period, Dylan Edwards again, his second of the game, and the score is 3-2. Now Alex Messier gets one through, ties the hockey game at 3. in the third. Late in the third, Storm going to take a lead here. Charlie Paquette loose in the slot. Down to the ice, no problem for Paquette. 4-3. It's Guelph taking the lead, but later Erie will answer again. Tying the game, Sam Alfano from Martin Mishiak off the faceoff. We're heading to overtime, and in overtime, Erie with a power play. Panofemis, bang, bottom of the left circle. Tough angle, gets it through. 5-4, the Otters win it in overtime over the Storm, who do settle for 1 point. They pick up a point for the third consecutive game. Birds and the Storm, here's how they line up. Goals against for Guelph have been the issue. They have allowed more goals than anybody else in the OHL. They average more than 4 goals against per game. That's a minus 32 goal differential. Firebirds have started to see a little bit more go in the net, both for them and against them, trying to get back to their solid team defense. When they're playing the best, they're limiting shots, taking away space, and making life easy on Nathan Day. The special teams for Flint power plays continuing to struggle. Penalty kill has looked a little bit better. They're not bad for Guelph, sitting kind of middle of the pack in both PK and power play. In the standings, this is where they stand after the trade deadline. Firebirds sitting in 6th, just 2 points out of 5th though, and only 5 points out of 4th. There's that big bit of separation in the Western Conference. Windsor, London, and Kitchener. The Guelph Storm sit in a tie though for 9th place, 27 standings points, even with the Owen Sound attack. So the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm for the second of 4 meetings this season. The dust has settled in the OHL. The trade deadline has come and gone. This is the group the Firebirds are going to go to work with for the rest of the year. We got the debut of Sam McHugh, the newly acquired Toronto Maple Leafs prospect, in the lineup for the Firebirds here this evening, as we'll get a look at what the Birds look like with McHugh added to their lineup here this evening. We're going to take a break right now, but when we come back on the pregame show driven by Shea Automotive, we'll get a look at the lineups for both teams, who's in and who's out on both sides, what the lineup will look like, the line combinations after the roster moves on both teams, all that and more when we come back on the pregame show after this here on the Firebirds Hockey Network.
The all-new Shea Collision Center, designed and built for all your collision needs, in a streamlined process to make your experience seamless. First, you'll be greeted by our friendly and knowledgeable staff. Next, we'll assess the damage for your insurance company. We'll then order all the parts needed. Production is next, with our highly trained and certified technicians. When all repairs are complete, we will clean, inspect, and deliver your vehicle back to you. The all-new Shea Collision Center. Your vehicle will love us, and you will too. Just saying.
Birds, Storm, Firebirds taking on the Guelph Storm for the second time this season. The first on this ice as Flint and Guelph set to get to work. There is a bit of a delay in warm-ups going on right now, as there was broken glass during warm-ups behind the Guelph net, so that's being fixed. We're going to get a look at that right now, and so hopefully this is not a game that ends up being delayed, as it is, again, the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm, but the new pane of glass is in place, so hopefully pretty soon we can get to it for the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm. Let's continue to roll along here though on the pregame show driven by Shea Automotive. Our lineups as we begin with the Firebirds who are going, with the Guelph Storm, as we'll follow the graphics along together. The Storm, who did not trade their biggest fish, Jet Luchenko, is still on this roster. You'll notice that the Philadelphia Flyers first-round draft pick from 2024 is not in the lineup today, though. That's because he's suspended for a couple of games after a cross-check that he had against the Erie Otters in their last game on Wednesday. Guelph also still without the likes of Jake Carabella out with an injury. So the Storm, though, who did move on from Thomas Budnick, they've got a young group, and this is what they're working with, of course, the balanced 12-6. Our players to watch. We'll begin with one of their forwards in Charlie Paquette, one of the go-to guys. He's a veteran on a young team. Now Paquette leads this team in points with 31 of them, 14 goals and 27 assists. He had 21 goals last season, now with 14 thus far this year. On pace for a new career high. He's been good the last few games. 3 goals, 4 assists in his last 4. He had a goal and an assist in their overtime loss against the Erie Otters on home ice 2 days ago on Wednesday. To the blue line, and Noah Jenkins. It's a name that probably sounds familiar. Former Firebirds defenseman Matthew Jenkins' younger brother He was the only player moved from London in the Cam Allen trade that sent the Capitals prospect to the London Knights earlier this season. Well, Jenkins been thriving with the Storm. 8 games played, 2 goals and 2 assists, 4 points in 8 games. Not bad at all for Noah Jenkins, who's at 2-9 for 11 points on the season. He's got his first 2 goals not only this season, but in his OHL career since joining Guelph. Seems like it could be a very nice place to be for the younger Jenkins. Matthew's younger brother Noah taking the Firebirds ice here this evening. And to the forwards again, and Lev Katzen. Now Katzen, he was one of the NCAA commits who moved over to the OHL from the USHL, a Penn State Nittany Lion commit. He left the Green Bay Gamblers of the USHL earlier this season, and a potential future teammate of Firebirds defenseman Nolan Collins in Happy Valley. Katzen's been great. He's the reigning OHL Rookie of the Month. 6 goals, 13 assists since joining the Storm. 1 goal, 3 assists his last 4 for Katzen, who's a guy who can make some things happen for the Storm. Over to the Firebirds as the Birds line things up today with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. Speaking of Nolan Collins, he's out today. Christian Colosimo dresses for only his second OHL game. Firebirds, you'll see Sam McHugh sitting on that second line left wing as Flint moves Connor Clattenburg back to center, centering Aspinall and Thibodeau on the first line as the Firebirds with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, still without Jimmy Lombardi, also without Josh Colosimo, both out with upper body injuries. Our players to watch on the Firebird side of things. Speaking of the Devils, Sam McHugh, he's in the building, acquired via trade from Owen Sound on Wednesday. McHugh, the Toronto Maple Leafs prospect, he was drafted by Toronto in the 7th round in the 2024 NHL draft. 18 goals and 13 assists in his time as an Owen Sound attack this season. Makes his Flint debut, the only trade they made at the deadline. He'll slot in at the left wing. As we mentioned in our previous segment, Birds say he really fits the mold, plays hard-nosed and tough hockey, and this crowd will be eager to watch him get to work, making his Firebirds debut on the second line here today. Hayden Reed has been good for the Firebirds lately. He made something out of nothing for his goal against the Brantford Bulldogs on the road on Wednesday. Up to 4 goals on the season, sits on the third line left wing tonight, reunited with Matthew Wang and Alex Kostov, a trio that has looked really good for the Firebirds this season at times. That's a hard-working bunch, ones that can be a bit of a pest, as the Firebirds will hope to get some magic out of that third line today. 7 points now for Hayden Reed, the Minnesota commit. Another guy who left the USHL, came over from the Sioux Falls Stampede. Now he slots in nicely with the Flint Firebirds. And the top line left wing, and how about 4 points the last time he saw the Storm for Nathan Aspinall. 9 goals and 16 assists on the season. 2 goals and 2 assists against Guelph on October the 25th. A 7-2 lopsided win for the Firebirds. He and Chris Thibodeau have had great chemistry all season. Connor Clattenburg will center that pair on the top line today. The New York Rangers prospect. 3 points in his last 5 games, including the primary assist on that Alex Kostov goal. Last time the Firebirds were on the ice, the one that cut it to 3-2 against Brantford in the eventual 5-2 loss. So we're still taking a look at what's happening, trying to get the glass situated behind the would-be goal for the Guelph Storm. And so it could be a bit of a delay in getting things started as we're nearing the scheduled start time right now. Typically, we'd be ramping things up for starting lineup introductions. But as you can see, if you're watching along with us here on our pregame show, driven by Shea Automotive, they're still trying to get the new pane of glass situated as the Dort Financial Center maintenance staff is working on it. Firebirds team president and arena general manager Jeremy Torrey is on the other side as they're trying to see what they need to do to get this thing to slot in. So my guess would be we're probably going to start in a bit of a delay as they're still trying to work that thing free. It's the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm here on the road, here at home in Flint, as the Birds, who have won 5 of their past 6 in this building, trying to make it 6 out of 7, but some maintenance repairs still going on with broken glass behind the net of the Guelph Storm. That Firebirds and Storm probably a little bit late in getting things started here this evening. Welcome once again back inside the broadcast booth. I'm Brian Gardner as we're in a little bit of a holding pattern here. Typically, we'd be thrown into break, getting ramped up for our starting lineup and player introductions. But as it stands right now, looks like we're not going to be starting on time. It's the Birds and the Guelph Storm with a little bit of a delay thanks to broken glass behind the net that will be occupied by the Guelph Storm as the Firebirds hope they can get it started before too long. So while we're waiting here a little bit, why don't, instead of just looking at me talking about the fact that we're delayed, we'll take the briefest of breaks. We'll be right back as the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm getting set to play some hockey here on a Friday night, on a snowy Friday night in mid-Michigan. Birds and the Storm. We'll take a short break. Back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. This is the Firebirds Hockey Network.
As 2024 comes to a close, our family here at Shea Automotive Group reflects on the year we've had with all of you. To our customers and our community, we send you a heartfelt thank you. From Chevy, Buick GMC, the Mega Lot, Mega East, Service, and Collision, have a happy and safe holiday season. And here's to a prosperous, peaceful, happy 2025 together. Just saying.
So we're in a delay. It's the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm who we're set to play some hockey here starting at 7 o'clock. We're past the 7 o'clock hour, and we're trying to, well, we're all watching, basically. What you're watching if you're with us here on OHL Live or on YouTube Live for our pregame show driven by Shea Automotive. It's the Birds and the Guelph Storm, and we're waiting to see them get this ice, this glass that is behind the net, the Storm we're warming up on, fixed. Looks like they're trying to slot in kind of the connector, the stanchion in between the glass panels, and for now we are starting in a bit of a delay as the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm here on this Friday evening from Flint and the Dordt Financial Center. So we're watching, we'll wait as we roll along here on the pregame show driven by Shea Automotive. Hello again, I'm Brian Gardner, glad to have you here as it's Flint and it's Guelph. If you missed it earlier on in the pregame show, the Birds made a trade on Wednesday to get Sam McHugh here to Flint. It was McHugh and draft picks, a second, 2/3, and a conditional 4th as we put it back up on the screen, a conditional 15th, as we put it back up on the screen in exchange for Cole Zarowski and a 15th round draft pick from the Flint Firebirds. So Zarowski, who was the first round pick of the Firebirds in the 2024 OHL priority selection, he heads off to Owen Sound. He actually made his debut on Wednesday evening. McHugh gets here to Flint. He'll make his debut tonight, and we're all eagerly waiting to see him get on the ice, but they're also waiting for the entire Firebirds team to get on the ice. McHugh, who's a Toronto Maple Leafs draft pick, he's a guy the Firebirds brass seems to be pretty high on. They say he really fits the mold. The Birds are trying to play what they feel the identity of Flint and mid-Michigan and Genesee County is. This is a hard-working area. It's a tough area. It's a hard-working and tough hockey team. A team that, yeah, they've got some skill as well, but they're going to try and outwork you every single time. And so in talking with the decision makers, the GM Dave McParlin and others from the Firebird side of things, looks like they're pretty happy about adding McHugh to the lineup. Looks like we're almost ready as they do have the pane of glass about situated. They're currently bringing off the broken pane right now as that is getting closer and closer to playing some hockey, and the ice scraper is now being used as a hammer. My, oh my, get the job done any way possible. We got people in the building. We want to play some hockey here on a Friday night in Flint. We're getting closer to doing so as they've lined things up oh so close to being fully slotted in and ready for some hockey. We're well past the 7 o'clock scheduled start time. In fact, nearing 5 minutes past the top of the hour. And basically every time we play home hockey games in Flint, the puck is down at around this time. And so, as you can tell, a brief delay in getting things started as the Firebirds trying to stay loose, I'm sure, back in the dressing rooms, getting themselves warmed up. And the interesting thing here is that these are players, creatures of habit, who will have spent a lot of time getting their bodies ready to go, ramped up for this puck drop. So I imagine once they skate out for warm-ups and introductions, you'll probably see some players who are just getting a couple of extra laps in, getting those legs activated and getting ready to play some hockey once we do get those starting lineup and introductions rolling. So it's the Firebirds and the Guelph Storm. Again, welcome back inside the broadcast booth. As you see, we are in a holding pattern as the Birds get set to take on the Guelph Storm. Flint in 6th place in the Western Conference, a tie for 9th for the Storm, who they're a team that they've traded away some of their horses. Cam Allen went to London prior to the holiday break. Thomas Budnick out earlier this week, and it's a team that's young and looks like they're in a bit of a retooling mode. Be interesting to see what they come out with here today. Absent Jet Luchenko, the first-round draft choice of the Philadelphia Flyers, who did spend some time up in the NHL earlier this season. He's suspended for 2 games. On the Flint side of things, they are going to be without their head coach, Paul Flash, who has been suspended for 5 games by the OHL, and this will be the 3rd of those 5. It was announced earlier today, and the last 2 games that were pending the review, those counted towards his suspension as well. So interesting things, who's in and who's out. Of course, the Storm still without Jake Carabella. Firebirds still without Jimmy Lombardi with an upper body injury. He has been skating, though. Josh Colosimo also out with an upper body injury for Flint, who gets the debut of Sam McHugh this evening, acquired in a trade 2 days ago. He makes his Firebirds debut today. Birds on home ice today, on home ice tomorrow, as the Firebirds will make their return here to home ice after dropping their last 3 on the road, 1 in overtime, 2 in regulation. Birds have won 5 of their last 6 on home ice. And how about this season for the Guelph Storm? They've only won 2 games away from home all year. They're 2-15-1 when they're on the road this season. Hopefully for the Firebirds, a recipe for a couple of points. For the Storm, you know they're coming in trying to knock off this Firebirds squad. It is the Birds and the Guelph Storm as we are continuing to wait for this to be fully sorted out. It's the Firebirds who are in a delay thanks to a broken pane of glass that was behind the net that the Guelph Storm were warming up on during the warm-ups, and the problem has been getting it situated in there. And as we watch together, looks like a member of the ice crew is really just kind of pull it in there, slot it in, and get it fastened securely. I guess the question is that in all the way? Is that in enough to stay fastened if a couple of OHL hockey players go hard into the boards? So as they continue to kind of jostle with it, the stanchion is in place. They did knock it down with the kind of edge tool ice scraper, but yeah, they're pulling down on it right now, so the question must be, this isn't all the way slotted in, as the Firebirds are still personnel from Flint on the other side. Just saw the assistant equipment manager, Joe Dixon, walk back down towards the Firebirds dressing room. I imagine he was sent out to try and figure out what exactly was happening. Firebirds and the Guelph Storm all waiting in the dressing room as we're still waiting to get things going here on this Friday evening in Flint. So as we wait for this, why don't we take another very short break and we'll see if we can gather any information. It's the Birds and the Guelph Storm in a bit of a holding pattern because of a tricky pane of glass. We're going to take a short break. We'll roll along with our delay here on the pregame show driven by Shea Automotive when we come back on the Firebirds Hockey Network.
What would you do with an extra $650? You can earn up to $650 per year with Boost Checking from Dort Financial Credit Union. Don't let your checking account just sit there. Boost Checking pays 6.5% annual percentage yield on balances up to $10,000. That's up to $650 extra to do what you love. For whatever you're thinking, dreaming, or doing, Boost Checking from Dort Financial. Fulfilling dreams, supporting community for over 70 years.